Today is the 6th episode of the College Football Preview Podcast special with my friend Cole Morse. And today you actually don't get a conference preview. Today you get my favorite, and I think Cole's favorite segment we have done. And first we're going to start off with our college football 2020-2021 playoff predictions with who we think is going to win the national championship. And let me just tell you, Cole has a very funny answer to this, and you'll get to that in a second. Also, most of the podcast is a hypothetical coaching scenario Cole and I did called Who Would You Want as Your Top 10 Coaches to Revive a College Football Program? Very different list, a lot of fun with that, a lot of arguing, but good, strong arguing where I'll just give you a preview. I'm lower on Harbaugh than Cole is as a Michigan fan, and he let me know it. And all in all, a very fun podcast. Please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast if you enjoy it. And if you liked listening to today's podcast, go back, listen to the previous 5 where we actually broke down each of the Power 5 conferences. Also, if you want, you can go back and listen to any of the other podcasts. They're all titled, you know what they'd be about in case you're interested in listening. Tonight is opening night for baseball. Can't wait. I am looking forward next week to starting back on the normal schedule of the podcast and plan to talk all baseball after this long weekend of pretty much 14, 15 baseball games a day. So it should be a blast. Without further ado, please enjoy the final episode with Cole. He will be back later in August for some NFL preview, but this is the last one with Cole. Enjoy. We're recording this on Monday, July 20th, and this is our final college football podcast previewing the 2020-2021 season. We did our 5 conference breakdowns that hopefully you guys have listened to at this point. The ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, and SEC. But today we have a kind of hypothetical question, and it's going to be what 10 coaches would you want to revive your college football program? We're not picking a program here. We're just saying if we were a fan of a college football team, what 10 coaches we would want to come into that program and revive it, get new blood, just succeed. A lot of that. But to start this podcast off, we want to give our college football playoff predictions. I'm going to go first, and my 1 through 4 is number 1, I have Alabama. Number 2, I have Ohio State. Number 3, I have Clemson. And number 4, I have Oklahoma. Sorry, it's pretty boring, I'm not going to lie, but I think those 4 are the best teams in the conference or country. Yes, the Pac-12 misses out on another playoff. This is the worst year for the Pac-12 to try and get a team to the playoff. You listen to our podcast preview of that. It's just a bad year for the Pac-12, and I don't really like much teams. I have Ohio State winning the title this year. I just think too much to look at in terms of I just like the offense. Justin Fields is back, and he was historically good last year, and they return a lot of guys around him. A lot of running backs that can make a huge difference. I just think it's Ohio State's championship this year, and we'll give Ryan Day his first championship in his first few years in college football. Cole, take it away.
You know, I don't love Alabama, so I don't have Alabama like you do. But I'm doing the thing. I'm falling under the trap of the Michigan preseason hype. Videos are coming out talking about quarterbacks. Colin Cowherd likes Michigan's quarterback, Dylan McCaffrey. I'm falling under the hype. And I saw something come out the other day where they were like, Harbaugh says he's right there as far as like on the national championship, like talent, teams, like right there with the team. You think they're right there. Just one more thing to go over the hump, and I think Dylan McCaffrey puts them there. So yeah, I'm falling under the hype. I'm doing the thing where Michigan fans get hyped before season starts. But my number 1 team going to the playoffs will be Clemson. They're going to be number 1. Number 2 is going to be Florida. I think they win the SEC. Surprising to a lot. I think Kyle Trask leads them to a lot. And Dan Mullen, I think, is a great head coach. And I just think they win a lot of games in a weird year, and they make it there. And then I see Michigan at the 3rd. I think they'll lose a game on the way to Ohio State, but I just think they beat them this year. Just because they're a lot younger. They lost a lot of leaders. Ohio State's a lot younger. They lost a lot of leaders, a lot of seniors, and I just don't love them. Ryan Day, second-year head coach, you see it so many times where the second-year head coach goes downhill. And I think that's just me holding on to the negatives of a school that I really don't like, but they're always so good. So I'm just wishful thinking here, obviously. But I think this might be it. This might be the year, but I've said that a lot, so we'll see. And then my last team, Oklahoma. They win the Big 12. I don't think the Big 12's that great. They'll have a few challenges here and there, but I just think they win the Big 12, come out with one loss, and they're the fourth team in.
Yeah, so, and the good thing I like about doing these previews in terms of like what our college football playoff predictions are is you can say anything and have a legit argument. Like, I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't see Michigan getting there, but you made a fair point for Michigan, which is all I can ask for, because you made the point for why Michigan could get to the playoff. You see so many, last year USC was in, I believe, like 25% of analysts thing, and USC didn't even win the Pac-12 in terms of being the best team in the Pac-12. So a lot of hypothetical, a lot of if they do this right, then they can get to this result, and that's how it is. So the top 10 coaches.
Wait, I gotta say my winner.
Oh yeah, you didn't say your winner.
No,
I'm sorry. That's my fault.
My national championship game. So it's gonna be Michigan's gonna beat Florida in the semifinal. Clemson's gonna beat Oklahoma, and Clemson's gonna win against Michigan. But they're gonna prove a lot. But Clemson's gonna win it all.
So you're gonna let your Wolverines get to the title game?
Nope. Wolverines win.
All right, he locked it in.
Wolverines win.
He locked
Remember
it
this.
in.
Remember this.
When we do this next year, we'll hopefully. I'm saying this because I don't want Michigan to get to the playoff. Hopefully, I can give them crap for having Michigan get to the playoff. But so the main part of this podcast that we want to give to you is our top 10 coaches that we would want to revive our college football program. We're just hypothetically saying we're at a school and we want that. Some of the factors we looked at, I would say, obviously success. Like, you're not going to pick a guy that's never won games. Age is kind of minimal, I would say. Not much age. We didn't look at age as much in terms of this. Some I did. Cole didn't as much. Also, the parameters for this breakdown is no coach that is in the NFL currently.
And they have to be alive.
We also have done some coaches that have retired in the past few years that we think could still come back. I think you guys know who that person is. He'll be on both of our lists. But there are also a few other coaches that might be on your list. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at 10. I'll go, then Cole will go, and we'll just go down the list till we get to the number 1, and we'll debate a little. So I am going to start the list off at number 10 by going with Ryan Day of Ohio State. And I just talked about how we didn't factor youth into it as much. I think Ryan Day is a generational talent. You see the NFL calling his name. He came in for Urban Meyer and had a better year than Urban Meyer might have been able to produce. There was some talk that Urban Meyer was kind of fading and Ryan Day was new blood. Well, he recruits extremely well. A lot of recruits really like him because he's very laid back. He stays very connected with the individual player, and that's very good to know as a coach, because every kid you recruit, you should hope to do the same interest in that recruit, put as much time into it, and I really like Ryan Day. And I did kind of mention, obviously, the youth thing. I think he's here to stay in college football. I know there's going to be NFL interest, but I see him building Ohio State up to what the likes of Alabama and Clemson are and staying there for a very long time. Cole, who do you have at number 10?
Well, first I want to say I would have Ryan Day on there, but I can't only base it off 1 year of coaching. None of my coaches have had only like 1 year of real head coaching experience.
I'll go real quick. That's a very fair point. I'm just kind of looking long term, but that's a good point in weighing that, because if a guy's only had a year, you don't know as much. But with Ryan Day, I really like him, so I felt like I could include him here. So go ahead.
My number 10 is James Franklin. He wins a lot of games. He recruits well. He's won a Big Ten championship. He's been close to the playoffs. He's another team that you could say is right there on knocking on the door of entering the playoffs for their first time. I think James Franklin always has his team pretty much in contention, the past 3 to 4 years, and James Franklin, for sure.
So, my number 9 is actually a guy who just won the national championship last year, and that's Ed Orgeron. And 56-36 in his coaching career, one title, and I just like him a lot. His personality is obviously second to none. Like, everyone knows his post-game interviews, his Go Tigers. He just seems to be a very good coach and seems to get the most out of his players. I mentioned on a previous podcast how I thought LSU might have kind of been a fluke in terms of last year, but you can't take any of that away from him as a coach. He recruits really well, and I just think going forward, he's one of the better coaches in college football.
I got Brian Kelly at number 9. I like him. He wins a lot at Notre Dame. He's really come up from starting as a small school and built up to Notre Dame, one of the most storied programs in college football, and he wins a lot with them. I think it's hard to win at Notre Dame. You're a northern school, and you play a lot of teams that usually have a pretty tough schedule. And I just think it's hard to win there, and I like that he does.
Yeah, you're not in a conference, which is very hard. I know Notre Dame fans like not being in a conference because they get their TV deal and all that.
I think they're so cool.
Yeah, they think they're very cool. But I agree with you. It's tough to win there, but he has. Number 8 on my list is Jim Harbaugh. And so I was debating, honestly, putting Jim Harbaugh on this list. But then I thought about it, and that was stupid. I had to put Jim Harbaugh on the list because he's a good coach. Yes, he's at Michigan, but at Michigan, he's been extremely successful. And his record, quite honestly, in college football is obviously stop at Stanford and Michigan, 103-40, which is very good. That's a very high winning percentage. And he's a good coach. I like him a lot as a coach. I personally, and Michigan fans can hate me for it, I don't know if he's your long-term option at quarterback. Hopefully not at head coach, but can't take anything away from Jim Harbaugh. And I think he's kind of a Jim Franklin-like coach in terms of if Ohio State's not in that conference, he's probably winning some conference championships. He's probably getting to some playoffs. But I just think Ohio State has been so tough. But I got Harbaugh at 8.
I'm gonna get into Jim Harbaugh a little later. Number 8, Kirby Smart. Wins a lot of games. Great defense, great recruiter. He's just a safe option. He's always gonna get you the wins. I don't know if he'll give you the national championship because we have yet to see that with him at Georgia. But I like him a lot, and he's a really solid coach. And there's not a lot of risk with him.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I do not have Kirby Smart in my top 10. I'm not a big Kirby Smart guy. Kirby Smart guy. I don't know. I think some of his decision making has really hurt him as a coach. I think if he keeps Justin Fields, they might be winning national championships these next few years. He messed up with that. Got Jake Fromm, but I think Kirby Smart's right outside that list. But being that you mentioned him and he was in your list, I figured I'd get that opinion. So number 7 for me, and this is a guy you had early in your list, and that's James Franklin. I think James Franklin is an extremely good coach. I think his schemes are second to none. I think he suffers from a lot of the same things that Harbaugh does. Like, you play in the Big Ten. Ohio State is the team in that conference. I think it's really tough. I like James Franklin as well because I don't see many off-the-field issues with him. He seems like a very good guy, and he came into a program in Penn State that was just looking for that coach to take them to what they used to be, because obviously Penn State, Joe Paterno time, was one of the programs in college football that was just there every year in terms of contending for national championships. And in this hypothetical where we want a coach to come in and revive a program, James Franklin revived Penn State, and I'm giving him number 7 on my list.
Now, the thing about James Franklin is I just think it's preposterous that people have him over Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is still not up yet, but I just don't get that argument very often. It took him a few years to get Penn State back to where they are. It took Jim Harbaugh not even a whole season to get Michigan back to good. They have one Indianapolis trip, one Big Ten championship trip, and it was in a year where Michigan beat them by 30-something points, and they barely beat Ohio State at home in a whiteout. and Michigan lost to Ohio State that year with a terrible call because JT was short at Ohio State. I just don't see all the hype for James Franklin. I like James Franklin. He's on my list, but I don't see how you put him ahead of Jim Harbaugh. But anyway, do you want to say anything off that?
No.
Oh, okay.
I might piggyback off it when you get to Harbaugh later.
All right. So my number 7 team is Dan Mullen. I've said it a lot on the last one. I love him. I think he's so good. Florida just has been contenders right from when he got there. They're always a solid team with a great defense, a fun offense. They're just good. And I just love Florida. I love him. And I think he was also great at Mississippi State. And I just think he's an incredibly safe option. He's going to get you a lot of wins.
I think that's very fair. Another coach I did not have on the list, but I do like Dan Mullen a lot. Not a controversial coach in any way, which is a very good thing to have. Number 6 for me, and this really you have to look at in terms of age is not a issue here, and that's Mac Brown at UNC. He's resurrected them in very quick time. Obviously, he was at Texas forever, won one national title. He on my list has the most wins in college football out of my top 10 coaches, 251 and 128. I just think he's a great coach. I think he is a guy that will get you success, and you see it. Yes, North Carolina is in the ACC that Cole and I have looked down on a lot in these podcasts, but I just see him being a great mind. He seems to really relate with his players, which I think helps. It's interesting. He's a lot older than a lot of these other coaches, and I think that's a good thing in his case.
Yeah, I like Mac Brown a lot. I do. He's not on my list, but I think that old age has got to me, even though we weren't putting that much weight on the age, it just got to me a little. But
because he's old, he's late 70s. He might not last much longer.
When I hear old age not having a factor, I'm thinking of Nick Saban, not like Mac Brown. Yeah. But anyway, my number 6 is Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh just wins. Not always the big one. Not always the big one, but I mean, Michigan was 5-8 before he got there. They won. Stanford never had any really good history of being good. They win. The 49ers were having 3-win seasons, terrible seasons before he got there. They went to a Super Bowl. He makes every team great. He makes every team way better. He brings them to championship contenders. I don't know how you can just argue with that Jim Harbaugh isn't a top 6 coach, top 7 coach. I don't know how you can have him really any lower. He does he recruits well right away, right from the gate. He got the number 1 recruit in the country. He does he understands his mistakes. He's hired new offensive coaches. He learns well. The players seem to really like him. I just think Jim Harbaugh is an elite coach, and he's shown at every level. Something that I think no other coach on this list can say is they've won at every level. Jim Harbaugh won in college, has won in the NFL. Nick Saban couldn't even do that. So, I just don't know how you can argue with that.
I'll give you a few things here. And I don't think Harbaugh is a bad coach, but I have a few things that really have stuck out to me with Jim Harbaugh. And yes, you mentioned he's willing to bring in new minds, and you listen, and then you can respond to me. Last year he brought in obviously new offensive mind Josh Gaddis, but there were so many times where he was the ultimate one making the decision, and a lot of the public didn't like that a lot. Also, you talked about recruiting. He recruits all that talent. In years, he's beat Ohio State in terms of how much talent he's brought in, but he still loses to Ohio State. I like him. Like I told you, I think he's a good coach. You have to beat the team you're supposed to beat. And I know, just once, and that is why I'm going to give James Franklin the nod over Harbaugh when I'm lining the two up in terms of who I want to come revive my program. Franklin's beat Ohio State. Harbaugh hasn't. I know that is a sour thing, and I know it's probably not very fair to hold that against him because, yes, he's done good against the rest of the Big Ten. But that's why I have James Franklin over Jim Harbaugh.
Ohio State doesn't care about Penn State like they do Michigan. I just think that's terrible. And also, the whole narrative completely shifts when you think of when JT was short. JT was short. Michigan wins that game. Everything goes out the door for Harbaugh. He's a great coach. He makes the playoffs that year, and who knows what else happens.
That's true, but it didn't happen, which is why.
No, but that's the thing. That's one little play, and everything's different. And I just think, you can't, that. I don't think that one play should make Jim Harbaugh go from 6 to 8 on your list. I just think
I have him in the list. It's still good.
I don't know. I think, yes, he has underperformed at times, but I don't think he is in the same class. I don't think he's in the same tier as James Franklin, honestly. Yeah, that's what I think.
Oh, I'm going to make you so mad then you're at number 5. And I know this guy's not on your list. And I will make the case for him. And hopefully people will believe me. Number 5, Herm Edwards. And this is obviously probably shocked a lot of people that I have him above some of the coaches I have listed. I think Herm Edwards is perfect for the college game. From what you've seen in 2 years, he's 15-11 at Arizona State. Arizona State was horrible, and he made a huge culture change. He made them recruit a lot better. I just think he's a great mind. He had success in the NFL. Yes, he didn't have the best record, but he was there a long time. I just think right now, in terms of bringing a coach in, I think Herm Edwards is probably one of the hotter coaches in terms of resurrecting a program, because Arizona State was trash. And I think Herm Edwards made them better. Players love him. Like, no one speaks against Herm Edwards as a bad person, a bad coach. People love him, and I'm going to give him the lofty spot of number 5 in my list.
That is preposterous that you have him over Jim Harbaugh. He literally, okay, sure, you took Arizona, whatever, they weren't good. Stanford sucked too, and they won a Rose Bowl. I just don't understand that. Like, Harbaugh's in the same things, but better. I just don't understand how you have Herm Edwards over Jim Harbaugh. Like, that is unreal to me. Sure, I think you're putting a little too much weight on how good Michigan State is, because Arizona State, wow, they beat Michigan State. Barely. Michigan State was not good, and they barely beat Michigan State. I don't know how barely beating Michigan State or any other teams, they're not winning that many games. Like, they're not, like, doing that great. They're in the worst they're in the worst Power 5 conference. I just don't know how any way you have Herm Edwards over Jim Harbaugh. I think that's crazy.
Remember, not all of this is what they've done in terms of record and stuff, which you made a good point. I hear you. I'm just saying right now, if I was a program that could get any coach, I would pick Herm Edwards before I'd pick Harbaugh, because I think Herm Edwards, players love to play for him, and that's my only reason. You go give me your number 5, and we can come back to it later.
That's crazy. Number 5, Chris Peterson. Recently retired from Washington. He is just elite. I think he has one of the toughest challenges in recruiting talent to a team in the Northwest, because not a lot of their games are on primetime TV because they're so far out west and they're in a cold climate. They're not like, players don't really like want to go there that bad. Kids don't grow up watching Washington play football because they're always on at 10:30 at night. I just don't like. He has done so much with not with so little, and they're always winning. They're always in New Year's Six games, winning those games. And yeah, I think he's a great coach, and he deserves to be at number 5.
Yeah, Chris Peterson, obviously retired, shocked a lot of people. A lot of that was health issues, so maybe we see him come back in the next few years. But he's a great coach. Boise State to Washington, and has only won. So number 4 on my list is Dabo Swinney, and 130-31, 2 titles. I just think, from a coaching perspective, he's one of the better ones that we have in college football. Now, how much of that is because he's at Clemson? I think that's a fair point. He eventually might become the Alabama head coach. It's a weird thing that a lot of people think when Saban retires, Dabo is going to be the head coach there. I don't see it happening. I think Dabo will be at Clemson until I'm old, which, well, I guess not, because he'd be dead by then. But I think he'll stick around for at least another 10 years at Clemson. The only jump I see him taking would be possibly to the NFL, which he doesn't seem like an NFL guy to me, and maybe Alabama. Yes, it's his alma mater, but that's Dabo Swinney at number 4.
Yeah, I like Dabo. He's at 4 for me as well. You can't argue with his results. He wins a lot of games, but I don't fully have a whole bunch of trust in him yet. I like him a lot. I mean, obviously I have a lot of trust in him. He's at number 4, but I don't think he's quite over, I would say, the legends of college football.
Yeah, some of the things actually this past offseason have kind of worried me about him. Doesn't really seem to be very aware of what he was doing. He obviously he's been in the news because there's been some racist things, and I just don't know about that. But from a production, he's not a player, but from a record base, and just from the eye test, he's got to be there. And now Cole just said about his legends in the top 3, and I'm probably going to surprise him a lot here. This guy's not on Cole's list, but remember with our list, and this I'm gonna use this. This is going forward also, like kind of guy I'd want to come in and revive my program. And I think the best offensive mind in college football, and I don't think it's close, is Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley is going to be at Oklahoma for a very long time. The only job he would leave for is the Cowboys if that comes calling. 2 Heismans in his first 3 years. He produces talent. I like him a lot. He's young. I think if you want a guy to come in and revitalize your program, there's none better right now in college football. And I like Lincoln Riley a lot. And I know you're giving me some looks right now, so you don't like that. But that's fair. Kind of just go.
You don't know what I like, Jeff. Number 3 is Nick Saban. The only reason he's at number 3, not higher, is because I'm looking to start my program right now, today, July 20th. That's when I'm looking to start my program and have it get revived, I guess. I'm looking to revive my program today. And I think Nick Saban is just, he's a great coach. Obviously, he's going to win a lot of games, and I'd love to have him as my head coach. But I think there's other coaches that will connect more with the players in our generation and kind of be able to mold them better and just connect with them better. And I think other players could do a good job. But like I said, obviously he's at number 3. He's an elite coach, and I would kill to have him as my head coach, even though I love you, Jim Harbaugh.
Number 2 for me is Nick Saban, and records outstanding, 243 wins and 65 losses. He's won 6 national championships, and we talk about Alabama last year, went 11-2, and that was a down year for him. That's what you want when you're bringing a coach in to revive your program. I think Nick Saban's an extremely good coach. Obviously, I don't think you disagree with me on this. Nick Saban's elite, and that's why I have him at number 2 on my list. So who's your number 2? Because I know we have one of the same. My number 1 I know is in your final 2, but you have a coach there that I didn't have. So let's see who's number 2, Cole.
My number 2 is Urban Meyer. Yeah, he's retired. Sure, he might have had some health issues. Who knows? Maybe he just left because some controversy was coming up. Same thing happened at Florida. A lot of bad players on that team, such as Aaron Hernandez, killed a few people. Urban Meyer, he's got some controversy behind him, but he's an elite coach. He always wins. I hate how good he is, especially because he coached Ohio State, but he is elite, and I would be completely fine with having him as my head coach. It would make a lot of people mad if he replaced Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, but it would have a bad taste in my mouth, but hey, winning's winning, and I'd be okay with it, honestly. I think he's great.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, he's not coaching Michigan. And I have him at number 1 on my list. Urban Meyer is a phenomenal football coach. But I'm going to tell you right now, I have him on the list, but I don't think he coaches another game. I am stubborn as a Ohio State fan that doesn't want him to coach again. I just don't see it happening. But if he were able to coach, he's my number 1 question, or without a doubt. I do agree with you, Cole, and being an Ohio State fan, I saw some of it. His off-the-field issues are very noticeable, but he wins, and sometimes people would rather win than he's so good, and I'm going to agree with you. I think his name's Chris Smith, the guy who potentially beat his wife, and he kind of threw that under the rug. I don't like that stuff, but from a winning perspective, I don't think there's any better than Urban Meyer. So, Cole, give me your number 1 coach that I just missed on and didn't even have in my list, and make the case for why he is the number 1 coach you would want to revive your college football program.
I will in a second, but first I want to say a funny stat about Urban Meyer at Florida. I think he had 8 felons on his national championship team. But the funniest thing about that is Tim Tebow was leading him at quarterback, and we all know how great of a guy Tim Tebow is.
Very religious, so not really like that.
Funny stat. So you didn't really miss on anyone, Jeff. Lincoln Riley is my number 1.
Oh, shoot. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think Lincoln Riley is elite. He somehow every single season finds a way to make good quarterbacks better and produces Heisman finalists and Heisman contenders. and he has an elite offense every year. Sure, it's his defense, whatever, but that's the Big 12. That's who it is. He's one of the hottest coaching prospects for the NFL. He makes just elite players, elite offensive talent on his team. He's a young coach, so I know I'm going to have him for a bunch of years. And he's a young coach that's already been tried and tested. He's already made it to the playoffs, was it 2 or 3 times? He's elite, and I don't think there's any coach better than him. If I'm any NFL franchise, I fire my coach right now if I know Lincoln Riley is going to be my head coach.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley's a flashy coach. Just really, he doesn't do anything wrong. Yes, you mentioned the defense. I mean, it's a Pac-12. It's a Big 12. They put up points. You don't really need to have an elite defense. They're pretty interestingly there with the young guys that you said. You said Lincoln Riley. I obviously had Ryan Day in my list. I think those two are going forward the next 15 to 20 years. Those are the 2 names in college football to watch out for. I just think they have the determination and the mindset to get it done. So on my list, I want to run some names by you that we both didn't have on our list, but people would consider potentially top hot coaching candidates, and I have 2 really quick. Matt Campbell, do you see him? I see him in the next 5 years possibly joining this list. A lot of people like him at Iowa State. I just think Matt Campbell is potentially a perfect guy you'd want to come in and revive your program. Iowa State was nothing. They have become something, and Ohio State was looking pretty heavily at him. They wanted him before they settled on Ryan Day. You also look at Michigan State, who really wanted Matt Campbell. He's just a hot name out there, and I think a lot of guys like him.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he is a great coach. He was literally in Iowa State is in the middle of nowhere. So that place.
It's hard to recruit.
That football stadium is just surrounded by corn and flat land. Like, that is hard to recruit, hard to get talent there. In a fast-paced Big 12 conference. And he finds a way to get the job done every year and at least make them contending for the Big 12 championship. They're not up there really like always, but they're always put up a fight against the top teams in the conference. And honestly, yeah, I would be fine if Matt Campbell became my head coach if somehow Jim Harbaugh passed away or something. Or went to the NFL.
I was gonna say, let's not go so hard.
Because he's not getting fired. I know that.
Okay, so and this guy I wouldn't say as a top 10 coach now, or probably even top 20 right now, but I think this guy has a ton of potential, and this is from me being an Ohio State fan, watching them a lot. What are your thoughts on Luke Fickell going forward? Big talk this summer. This spring, Michigan State really wanted him. He is, I think, a great offensive mind, defensive as well. All in all, I think he's one of the other coaches that you should watch. Maybe not at the top, but I think Luke Fickell is going to have a long career and be extremely successful.
Yeah, he has a great record, all-time record, and I think he's a good coach, and he's made Cincinnati contenders every single season in the AAC, and yeah, he's really good. I think he's a really smart guy, genius guy. I mean, he didn't take Michigan State guy, so that's a job. So that's points for that. Good job. He's still pretty young. Only 46 years old. So he's got that kind of gray area where he's got experience, but also still got a lot of years left. And I think any team would also be lucky to have him. And I think MSU really missed out on getting him. But I think he's holding out for a better job that he will definitely get within maybe Auburn, South Carolina. Those are just 2 schools that are on the hot seat that have storied programs on the hot seat. I think he's holding out for a job like that.
I think he's holding out for if Ryan Day goes to the NFL. I think he's the perfect guy for Ohio State. So this will wrap up our college football 6-episode preview special that Cole and I had a blast recording. Obviously, thank you, Cole. We had a lot of fun doing this, and hopefully you guys will tune in and listen to all 6. We're hoping to possibly in August do some NFL preview podcasts as well. So this will wrap up these series. Thanks, Cole.
Definitely. Thank you.
We'd love to have you back.
Great to be here.